On March 26th, I went out to dinner with some colleagues and came back, and it was about 9:30 and sat down in the chair, and I got the phone call that told that my son had passed away. So I went into just panic, shock, disbelief, transitioning into wanting somebody to hurt as bad as I did. It was alcohol related, addiction related is why he died. I did not want to admit it to myself that he had a problem. I knew it, but I didn't want to deal with it out of fear.
And in the weeks prior to Anthony's death, there'd been some discussion amongst family members that, and Anthony himself had kind of mentioned that maybe it was time to look at his addiction and try to find a way to get to a point that he was healthy again. And so our discussions as a family kind of went from how do we help him to planning a funeral. And dealing with the question of what if? That question came up. What if we would have done this instead of that? What if we would have done, taken a different route?
But you ask yourself those questions after it's too late.
Tony was actually scheduled to go to Texas, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and he was going to go to Anthony's grave and go do a few errands. It was approximately an hour later, I got a phone call from the Dakota County Sheriff. Tony had been in a car versus train accident, and they were life flighting him. And it was like, okay, we just drop what you're doing, get in the car. We actually had to drive right by the accident site. We got to the hospital, and it was like Dr. Voles telling us it's not good. Taking him to surgery, and we don't know the outcome. You probably should go say goodbye. I remember sitting down on the sidewalk outside of Mercy Medical Center and just having a long talk with God. And it was like, God, this is it. This is enough. I have had it. I cannot take this anymore. How can this happen? 3 months later. So we kind of went from a grief period to how do you put that on hold, because now we've got to fight for Tony's life.
But when I reflect on it, I think about why was I spared and why was my son not spared? Obviously, I don't know the answer to that, but the only thing I can come up with is I was spared because of what happened to Anthony and realizing all that stuff now, I was spared to be here to help other people.
My sister was like, you need to go to Christmas Eve at the Orpheum with us. And I kind of rolled my eyes because it was like, you know what, no, I'm kind of good. We're just getting back on track. And she's like, no, you need to realize how much you have to be thankful for. So we reluctantly went to Christmas Eve at the Orpheum. And that year, I will never forget, we were sitting toward the back because we were kind of like, okay, we'll go, but
just blend in.
Blend in the back where nobody can really see us. Even though we were sitting with a lot of family members, and the entire Orpheum went dark. And there was just a single spotlight. And the song, There Is a Light, was sung. And I think we both sat there and pretty much had tears rolling down our eyes, because I think it was at that moment that we both kind of looked at each other. It was like, somebody finally opened a door. We were in the darkness. We thought we were doing okay, but I think it was that moment that we were really like, somebody finally understands. And I remember getting in the car and I think Tony said to me, "Do you think it's kind of weird, or was Pastor Jeff kind of like talking right to us?"
That time, that's the first time that I ever really thought of God spoke to you. And it's like not in a physical voice, but God spoke to me. I believe that, spoke to both of us that day. You start to try and sort things out a little bit more, and you're thinking, you know, I think it's time to dig in a little bit more and become a little bit more involved, just to carry Anthony's message, but try to become closer to God and put God in the center of our relationship, or number one, as he should be. And the affinity group started, and I think it was probably it might have been the third week, I think it was maybe the second week of the affinity group, and Christy and I started going to that.
I always remember Dirk saying, you know, this is a kind of a springboard group. We want you to be able to go out and eventually start your own groups, and it was kind of the same thing. It was kind of like roll the eyes, yeah, like that's ever going to happen. And we actually were able to connect with some other parents that have children and people that have other family members that have addiction. And
the nudge came again. Yeah. And it's once again time to step out of your comfort zone and be a group leader.
And we've actually now branched off, and we started our own small group called Empowering Hope. And we know that every person that is out there either has an addiction or has a family member.
It's touching their lives, or has touched their lives.
And addiction just doesn't mean drugs, alcohol. It can be gambling. It can be shopping addictions. There are so many addictions that impact a family. Even shortly after Anthony's passing, it was always one of our goals, is to be able to do something to reach out to other family members, to give them hope that it's not their fault that their loved one has an addiction. It is not their shame. It's nice to know that other people are at the same place you are, and that you're not alone.